What's up, everybody? We are in 1 Kings chapter 11, page 362 in the scriptures. If you haven't been following along to this point, I recommend you pull out your Bible, you watch the previous videos, or you go and read on your own so that you understand what we're talking about thus far. We're talking about King Solomon. And thus far, he's done a really good job. Thus far. Asterisk caveat. Chapter 11. And King Solomon loved many foreign women, in addition to the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite and Ammonite and Edomite, Sidonian and Hittite women. All those people that when Israel went into the promised land under the leadership of Joshua, that the father said, get rid of them so that they don't pollute you. In fact, in Numbers chapter 25 through 28, there's the story of Balaam and Balak and how do we take over Israel if we can't kill them on the battlefield. You pollute their bloodlines and their way of life with your daughters and therefore your ideologies. Interesting thought. Be careful who you marry. And Hittite women from the nations of whom Yahweh had said to the children of Israel, you do not go into them, and they do not go into you, for they shall certainly turn away your hearts after the mighty ones. Solomon clung to these in love. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. In Deuteronomy 17, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy 17, verses 14 through 20. When you come into the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you, and shall possess it, and shall dwell in it, you shall say, let me set a king over me. You shall say, Israel shall say, hey, set a king over us, like all the nations that are around me. And you shall certainly set a king over you, whom Yahweh your Elohim shall choose. Set a king over you from among your brothers. You are not allowed to set a foreigner over you who is not your brother. Interesting. Only he is not to increase horses for himself, nor cause the people to return to Mitzrayim, Egypt, to increase horses or wealth. For Yahweh has said to you, do not return that way again. And he is not to increase wives for himself, lest his heart turn away. Nor is he to greatly increase silver and gold for himself. We're familiar with the story of Solomon, right? And it shall be when he sits on the throne of his reign that he shall write for himself a copy of this Torah in a book. From the one before the priests, the Levites. There's something, I don't know about you, but when I write something down, I tend to remember it a lot better than when I don't. That's why there's always scribble on my hand, okay? I always have a pen and paper handy so that I can write stuff down. I may not look at it again for days or weeks, maybe longer than that, but the process of writing something down helps me remember it. And it shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life, so that he learns to fear Yahweh his Elohim, and guard all the words of this Torah and these laws to do them, so that his heart is not lifted up before his brothers, and so as not to turn aside from the command right or left, so that he prolongs his days in his reign, he and his children in the midst of Israel. So to be a king of Israel, you have to have a copy of the Torah, and it shall be with you, and you'll read it all the days of your life, so that you learn to fear Yah, and guard all the words of this Torah and these laws to do them. Just saying, there's prophecy. There's prophecy about this guy named Yeshua HaMashiach. He is the king of peace, returning for the Father's chosen people, which we refer to as Israel. Genesis 32. Bear, Israel is a place on the map. Okay, well, girlfriend, you need to go read Genesis 32. Okay? All right. And he had 700 wives, back to 1 Kings 11. Princesses and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. Solomon we're talking about. It came to be, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other mighty ones, and his heart was not perfect with Yahweh his Elohim. Oh, if you can hear that noise, it's my refrigerator in this lovely hotel room that I'm in. It's really good when you're trying to sleep. It's good stuff. All right. It came to be, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other mighty ones, and his heart was not perfect with Yahweh his Elohim, as was the heart of his father David. And Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the mighty one of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. Thus Solomon did evil in the eyes of Yahweh, and did not follow Yahweh completely like his father David. Let's turn back into Deuteronomy just for a hot minute. 12 verse 3. By the way, if I send a little extra New Yorkie today rather than Oklahoma, it's because I'm currently in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and since I've been here, I've been saying more bad words. I've said more bad words in the last week than I have in the last month. And my New York is coming out, because I'm surrounded by people that are talking like this, and they all talk really fast, and hey, bibbidi-bobbidi-boo, you know, that. So, Deuteronomy 12, verse 3. We'll just start at 1. These are the laws and the right rulings which you guard to do in the land which Yahweh your Elohim of your fathers, is giving you to possess all the days that you live on the soil. Now, I don't know about you, but I definitely feel like the soil that I have was given to me by Father Yah. And I know I fellowship with and know many, many people that feel that same way. Completely destroy all the places where the nations which you are dispossessing served their mighty ones, their false gods, on the high mountains and on the hills and under every green tree. Every green tree. Put the presents under an every green tree, so that we can celebrate the winter solstice, pretending that that was the birthday of Messiah, but it's not. It was in the fall, very likely Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, when we dwell together with God. So, and it's also interesting that served their mighty ones. It's not that these other things out there don't have power. It's that they're not Yahweh, the Lord your God. And he is almighty, all-powerful. He will wreck you. Exodus 15 verse 3 is my favorite verse. Yahweh is a warrior. Yahweh is his name. He is a warrior, and he is a jealous Elohim, and he bodies people who do not listen. And he goes to war for your soul against all these other mighty ones. And they can't hold a candle to the light that is Yah and Yeshua. And you shall break down their slaughter places and smash their pillars and burn their Asherim with fire. And you shall cut down the carved images of their mighty ones and shall destroy their name out of that place. Do not do so to Yahweh your Elohim. Asherim are giant penises. They're phalluses. You may have seen some at the Washington Monument or on top of any church in the United States of America. Those are Asherim. They're phalluses. They are male reproductive organs, and they're used in the worship of these false gods. And as we can see here, back to 1 Kings 11, Solomon is going to get schwacked in his male reproductive organs by the Father for bowing down to these things, bowing down underneath them. All right, congregation, let's all go ahead and bow our heads so we can pray to the Lord underneath the Asherim on the day of the worship of the sun. Yeah. And Solomon went after Ashtoreth, Asherim, Ashtoreth, the mighty one of the Sidonians, and after Milcom the abomination of the Ammonites. Thus Solomon did evil in the eyes of Yahweh, and did not follow Yahweh completely like his father David. Well, that's for the Hebrews. That's for the Jews. Your God, if you confess that Jesus is the Christ, is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The exact same blood flowed through them that flows through Solomon. And if you've read Matthew in the New Testament, chapter 1, the genealogy of Jesus the Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, you see that same exact blood flowed through Yeshua. And in order for Yeshua to be the Christ, which means the anointed of Yahweh, your Elohim, he had to fulfilled all the Old Testament prophecies, not done away with, fulfilled, meet the requirements of, one of which is righteousness, which is blamelessly walking in the commands of Yah. So we gotta do this too. Don't do evil in the eyes of Yahweh. Then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, on the hill that is east of Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. Molech, bright red, big iron thing, statue of a bull man that they would fill with firewood, and they would burn it until it became bright red. It had a bowl in his lap, and you would place your children into the lap of the bright red demigod. And as they screamed and cried because they're being burnt alive, you would tell the priest, you would make requests of the priests as to what wishes you wanted fulfilled. Let's go put Jimmy on Santa's lap and tell him what you want for Christmas, Jimmy. Molech, an abomination. And so he did for all his foreign wives who burned incense and slaughtered to their mighty ones. Therefore Yahuwah was enraged with Solomon, because his heart had turned away from Yahweh Elohim of Israel, who had appeared to him twice, and had commanded him concerning this word not to go after other mighty ones, but did not guard what Yahweh had commanded. And Yahweh said to Solomon, because you have done this, and have not guarded my covenant and my laws, which I have commanded you, I shall certainly tear the rain away from you, and give it to your servant. Only I do not do it in your days, for the sake of your father David. Out of the hand of your son I shall tear it. So this entire kingdom is going away. Why? Remember, why is this important? Because Jesus the Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, the prophesied Messiah of the Old Testament, was prophesied to be a king in the line of David. And he is a king in the line of David. And what is required of kings in the line of David? Because you have done this and have not guarded my covenant and my laws, which I have commanded you, I shall certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to your servant. You're telling me that Yeshua is going to have the kingdom torn away from him by the Father because the law was nailed to the cross? No, don't even make those BS arguments with me unless you've read and understand the entirety of your Bible. You can't have a lawless Messiah. You can have a lawless man that's not Messiah. But Yeshua was perfect, without sin. Sin is lawlessness. He was not lawless. And if we are followers of Messiah, on board that, your little what would Jesus do bracelet, he'd keep the law. That's what he would do. That's what he did. If you read Revelation, that's what you're doing when he comes back. There will be a new heaven and a new earth and a new Jerusalem and a new temple. What do we need the temple for? We're dwelling with Yah on earth. And there's still a temple. I thought that was all done away with. Negative, Ghost Rider, not done away with. Only I shall not tear away all the rain, but give one tribe to your son for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen. And this is where we begin to see the two-house theology here, the house of Judah and the house of Israel. Judah being the tribe of Judah, the tribe of Benjamin, and the Levites. that end up remaining in the area around Jerusalem, and then the other 10 tribes, Naphtali and Manasseh and Gad and Ephraim, so forth and so on. Okay, so the tribe of Israel and the tribe of Judah. This is important to understand because we're going to go into a period of time where there's multiple kings in that land. The king of Israel and the king of Judah. And then some are taken into exile and some aren't. And then they're at war against each other and they're killing their brothers and they're not. And they're helping their brothers and they're teaming up against the king of Ashur. The king of Ashur is like, I'm teaming up back. And you got the Hittites and the Ammonites and the Egyptians. And it gets very active in this period of time where Israel is divided. What did Yeshua say? A house divided against itself cannot stand. That was such a good line that Abraham Lincoln used it in the Gettysburg Address. And Yahweh raised up an adversary against Solomon, Hadad the Edomite. Hadad, he was the seed of the king of Edom. And it came to be when David was in Edom, and Joab, the commander of the army, had gone up to bury the slain after he'd struck every male in Edom. Joab remained there with all Israel for 6 new moons, until every male in Edom was cut off. That Hadad fled to go to Mitzrayim, he and certain Edomites of his father's servants with him, while Hadad was still a little child. So when David was on the campaign with Joab, remember Joab was a very powerful general for David. When David was on that campaign against the Edomites, Hadad bounced out. He bugged out to Egypt so that he wasn't slain with all the males. And they arose from Midian and came to Paran and took men with them from Paran and came to Mitzrayim to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, who gave him a house and ordered food for him and gave him land, because he was the son of the king of Edom. And Hadad found much favor in the eyes of Pharaoh, so that he gave as a wife the sister of his own wife, the sister of sovereigness Taphines. And the sister of Taphines bore him Genubath, his son, whom Taphines weaned in Pharaoh's house. And so now you've got the Edomites and the Egyptians are now bonded by marriage and by blood. And Genubath was in the house of Pharaoh among the sons of Pharaoh. And Hadad heard in Mitzrayim that David slept with his father. So he heard that David died. And that Joab, the commander of the army, was dead. And Hadad said to Pharaoh, let me go to my land. Now is my time, bro. I got to go home. Pharaoh said to him, but what have you lacked with me? And you are now seeking to go to your own land? And he answered, no, but please let me go. He's like, man, I thank you so much, but I gotta go. And Elohim raised up another adversary against him, Rezon, son of Eliada, who had fled from his master, Hadadazar, sovereign of Sova, and gathered men to him, and became commander over a raiding band when David killed those of Sova. And they went to Damascus, and dwelt there, and reigned in Damascus. And he was an adversary of Israel all the days of Solomon. And so now these pockets of resistance are popping up. These outsiders are coming in and starting to weaken Israel. And he was an adversary of Israel all the days of Solomon, besides the trouble that Hadad caused. And he was hostile to Israel and reigned over Aram, the Arameans. And a servant of Solomon, Jeroboam. So Jeroboam, we see in Chronicles, interesting fellow. Different conversation for different time. I feel like we're already going long. But Jeroboam, son of Nebat, an Ephraimite from Saradah, whose mother's name was Sarua, a widow, also lifted up a hand against the king. So now Jeroboam, from internal conflict. And this is what caused him to lift up a hand against the king. Solomon had built Millo, repairing the breaks in the city of David his father. And the man Jeroboam was a brave man. And Solomon, seeing that he was a young man doing his work well, made him an officer over all the compulsory labor of the house of Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim. And it came to be, or Manasseh and Ephraim, whatever pronunciation you prefer, internet people. And it came to be at that time when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem that the prophet Abijah, the Shilonite from Shiloh, met him on the way. And he was wearing a new garment, and the two were alone in the field. And Ahijah took hold of the new garment that was on him and tore it into 12 pieces. So I'm walking down the way, just minding my business, and this prophet comes out to me, rips my shirt off, and then takes this shirt and then rips it into 12 pieces. That's an interesting, hey, what's up? You know, shalom, nice shirt, give me that. I like Hulk Hogan in the wrestling ring. 12 pieces, okay? And Ahijah took a hold of the new garment that was on him and tore it into 12 pieces, and said to Jeroboam, take for yourself 10 pieces. For thus said Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, see, I am tearing the reign out of the hand of Solomon, and shall give 10 tribes to you. But he shall have 1 tribe for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. 1 tribe for David, 1 tribe for Jerusalem, Judah and Benjamin. And we'll see that the Levites end up coalescing in Jerusalem as well. Different story for a different time. Because they have forsaken me and bow themselves to Ashtoreth, the mighty ones of the Sidonians, to Chemosh, the mighty ones of the Moabites, and to Milcom, the mighty ones of the children of Ammon, and have not walked in my ways to do what is right in my eyes, and my laws and my right rulings, as did his father David. Because you decided that what you wanted to do was more important than what God told you to do. Well, how do we know what he told us to do? It's in the book. Read it. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Everything after that is basically living commentary on whether or not the people who were commanded to do these things did these things and how it worked out for them. Okay? Well, I just love doing Easter. Good for you. It's a pagan spring equinox, fertility, cultish type celebration. Good for you. If you've ever wondered why a bunny can poop eggs, it's because, have you ever heard the phrase screwing like bunnies? Yeah. Fertility. The egg, the ovum, fertility. It's fertility. And it's done in springtime, worshiping as the sun comes up, rebirth. And in the spring, because it's the end of the winter, and then the earth becomes pregnant with life again. It's pagan fertility worship. It has nothing to do with Christ. Not even a little bit. But you just like it so much. And Yahweh, your Elohim, is up there just ready to hammer fist you in the forehead as you bow down underneath the giant penis on top of this building on the day of the sun to worship your pagan fertility gods. Wondering why you can't hear the voice of God. He just won't talk to me. No shit, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Because they have forsaken me and bowed themselves to Ashtaroth, the mighty one of the Sidonians, and Chemosh, the mighty ones of the Moabites, and to Milcom, the mighty ones of the children of Ammon, and have not walked in my ways to do what is right in the eyes of my laws and my right rulings, as did his father David. But I do not take all the reign out of his hand, because I have made him ruler all the days of his life for the sake of my servant David, whom I chose because he guarded my commands and my laws. David, the house of David, whom I chose because he guarded my commands and my laws. Same house of David, same blood that ran through Yeshua. And I shall take the reign out of his son's hand and give it to you and the 10 tribes. And to his son I give 1 tribe, so that my servant David shall always have a lamp before me in Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen for myself to put my name there. So I take you, and you shall reign over all that your being desires, and you shall be king over Israel. So the line of David gets the house of Judah, and Jeroboam gets the line of Israel. Interesting. Now there's a clear divide between Israel and Judah. Remember in Hebrews chapter 8. Why are we going to remember when I can just read it? It's back here. That's Colossians, Bear. Learn to read. Sorry, bro. I got too many things in the Bible. Hebrews chapter 8. For finding fault with them, he says, see, the days are coming, says Yahweh, when I shall conclude with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah a renewed covenant. Two-house theology. I would recommend you do some studying on that, because we're going to be seeing a lot more of that as we work our way forward in this book. So I take you, and you shall reign over all that your being desires, Jeroboam, and you shall be king over Israel. And it shall be if you obey all that I command you, and shall walk in my ways, and do what is right in my eyes, to guard the laws and my commands, as my servant David did, then I shall be with you, and build for you a steadfast house, as I built for David, and shall give Israel to you. What does Yeshua say? I come first, but for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. A king, a prophesied Messiah, a king in the line of David. If you obey all that I command you, and walk in my ways, and do what is right in my eyes, to guard my laws and my commands, as my servant David did, then I shall be with you, and build for you a steadfast house, as I did for David, and shall give Israel to you. The law was nailed to the cross. No, negative. No, it was not. You are propagandizing. You are lying to people. And because of this, I humble the seed of David, but not forever. And of course, Solomon sought to kill Jeroboam, take him off the battlefield. And Solomon sought to kill Jeroboam, but Jeroboam rose up and fled to Mitzrayim, to Shishak, the king of Mitzrayim, and was in Mitzrayim until the death of Solomon. And the rest of the acts of Solomon, all that he did in his wisdom, are they not written in the book of the acts of Solomon? And the days that Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel was 40 years. So Solomon slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David, his father, and Rehoboam, his son, reigned in his place. Rehoboam, well, we'll see next time. I appreciate y'all. Have a blessed day. Shalom.